Good evening from Downing Street, which in just over 6 weeks' time will have a new occupant. It has so far been an uncivil war, bedeviled by allegations of smears and accusations from supporters of ousted rival Penny Mordaunt that the battle will end up finishing off the Conservative Party. The final round of voting by MPs was close. Liz Truss was only 8 votes ahead of Ms Mordaunt, with Rishi Sunak consolidating his commanding lead. But the next Prime Minister will now be selected by fewer than 200,000 Tory members, with Team Truss confident they'll prevail there. Mr Sunak's supporters say only he can win a general election. That's not currently scheduled until January 2025. Until then, most voters have little choice but to sit back and watch what, on the basis of the rhetorical blows traded so far, promises to be a somewhat unedifying spectacle.
People have heard from me a positive vision about what we can do. I'll tackle our problems with honesty.
I am entirely focused on a positive campaign, putting my case across. We need to deliver for the British people.
Counting the cost in damage and destruction. Homes razed to the ground as London firefighters saw their busiest day since the Second World War, and record temperatures sparked blazes throughout the country. And how soaring inflation at its highest rate for 40 years is taking its toll on people already struggling to pay the bills.
Every time you see a price rise at the petrol pump or going into the shops, how much does that have an impact on you?
It makes me sick. I mean, the petrol pump is the perfect metaphor for it, because you sit there and you watch your money just disappear.
Penny Mordaunt had come second in every round of voting except the one that really mattered. She was overtaken in today's 4th round by Liz Truss, so Conservative members will now decide between the Foreign Secretary and former Chancellor Rishi Sunak. He was backed by 137 MPs in today's vote. Liz Truss got 113 and Penny Mordaunt 105. That means that if Liz Truss becomes Conservative leader, she will do so with the backing of a smaller percentage of the party's MPs than Boris Johnson, Theresa May, David Cameron and even Iain Duncan Smith. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is here. Gary.
So we've learned today that we're not getting the fresh start, clean break contest that some people wanted. We're getting 2 of the most familiar faces from Boris Johnson's government. We're also getting, these are the 2 people who absolutely personify the ideological debate over whether tax cuts should be immediate or deferred, and they're the people who've taken the biggest chunks out of each other in the debates so far. Liz Truss is effectively offering the economic policy that Boris Johnson, as far as we can gather, wanted to pursue but was frustrated from pursuing by Rishi Sunak. And Boris Johnson, as he did his last scheduled address to the House of Commons today, barring an emergency, that's the last time we'll see him at the dispatch box, he said he did some pretty heavy hints that he thought the Treasury was the seat of bad thinking. You ought to keep away from it. There have been much blunter messages going in text from people inside Number 10, trying to warn people off both Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt. Some went out this morning referring to each of them, one as a snake, one as a moron. This now goes to the members, and Rishi Sunak starts from behind. He knows that because he really wanted a bigger lead than the one he's got amongst the MPs. He said, because to people who came, MPs who came into his office, or the office he's been using, he would say again and again, give me as big a lead as possible so I can turn this thing round and impel the, require the members to back me. He hasn't got that. What he also wanted was a bit longer before the members actually vote, because he can see he's behind. He's got limited time now before the first ballot papers drop 1st of August, about 10 days or so, before some of them might start voting. He's got to squeeze some sort of concession out of Conservative HQ that you can vote early and then change your vote later with an electronic vote, but it's not clear that that will do the job for him. So in the next 10 days, what we can expect is an intensifying, if that were possible, of the battle that's been going on between these 2 people, not just in some more TV debates that are now scheduled between the 2 of them, but also, I suspect, in some big name endorsements. Look out for where William Hague goes, some people like that people hope can win over the grassroots, because Rishi Sunak has a job on his hand now. He's not the tearaway front runner that he might have been if all this had happened months and months ago. The two candidates who've been taking the biggest chunks out of each other in debates are the two who will battle it out to the end. None of the fresher faces in the contest made it onto the ballot papers that will go out to party members in 10 days' time. Instead, they will choose between the man who was Chancellor for the last 2.5 years and the current Foreign Secretary.
What I believe is that lowering taxes, opening up opportunities is going to help us deliver the economic growth that Britain needs, and it's also going to help deliver us the next election.
Even though you said her policies were socialist, Liz Truss would have a place at your cabinet table?
As I said, this leadership contest has shown that we've got fantastically able people at the top of our party. All of them bring something exceptional to the table. But at this point, the question for our members is, who is the best possible person to beat Keir Starmer in the next election? And it's clear that I'm the only candidate who can do that.
As her hopes faded this morning, the eliminated candidate Penny Mordaunt tweeted a Telegraph article with the headline, "Vote for Sunak or Truss today and you'll murder the party you love." She deleted the tweet, but the thought lingered on.
This may not come over as the fresh face, the change that people wanted, but I think that...
The party may pay a price for that in terms of trying to reconnect.
I think it's maybe, I think if Liz and Rishi can play the ball, not the player, can play the idea, not the politician.
I changed their tactics a little.
Yeah, I think if the public is
dirty.
Subjected to that TV debate for 6 weeks, I'm afraid I fear that Conservatism will be the loser and the government will be the loser.
The Conservative Party is world class at bearing a grudge. So I would like to think we'll all pull behind the winner, but we love a grudge, we love a blood feud. So maybe impossible.
A decent chance a Liz Truss premiership doesn't end happily.
Look, I hope it does. Look, we've got some real rifts in our party. There's a decent chance that the premiership of Rishi or Liz Truss will not end happily. I mean, we're not in a good place as a party. We like to fight each other more than we like to challenge the Labour Party.
In her long-planned campaign, Liz Truss has gone to huge lengths to be seen as the new Margaret Thatcher.
You raised national insurance, even though people like me opposed it in cabinet at the time.
Supportive papers have helped to propel her into the final two, and maybe yet to the premiership. Some people say what you get with Liz Truss is the policies Boris Johnson wanted to pursue but was stopped by Rishi Sunak from pursuing. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not privy to those.
It sounds like that was what Liz Truss was saying in the debates.
Well, I think what Liz has is a very passionate vision about what she wants to do for our economy, and I think it's a very exciting vision about how she wants to, use that free market capitalism that we should be using the Brexit opportunities.
Some right-wingers strayed into Rishi Sunak's pack, worried about Liz Truss's electability. Liz Truss just seems a bit wooden to you.
Well, that's the criticism that's made, and I think certainly in terms of my comparison between Rishi and Liz Truss, I think Rishi, is more effective.
I said whatever it takes, and I meant it.
His public rating soared as he sprayed cash to save jobs during COVID, but his critics hate the tax rises that have followed in its wake and attack him for bringing down Boris Johnson to serve his own long-nurtured leadership ambitions. He's decided to take them on in the campaign.
Do we tell ourselves comforting fairy tales that might make us feel better in the moment, but will leave our children worse off tomorrow?
If Liz Truss wins, will you rally behind fairy tale economics?
Well, the one thing you can say about the Conservative Party, and people don't always like this, is we always have a fantastic ability to rehabilitate around whoever is our leader.
He's got an uphill challenge with the members. If we believe the opinion polls of the membership, he starts behind with them. He's got real headwinds from the media as well.
So I've seen the same opinion polls that you have. And I think both the candidates have got quite a challenge ahead of them. I've done some local surveys in my own constituency. Rishi finished quite a long way ahead of Liz. And we've got quite a big membership in Newbury. Now, I can only obviously speak for my own constituency, but I think you'll see a lot of ebb and flow.
At Boris Johnson's last scheduled appearance at the dispatch box as Prime Minister, a loyal MP tried to pay tribute, but was interrupted by opposition jeers.
On behalf of the House, may I thank the Prime Minister. On behalf of the House, may I thank the Prime Minister for his 3 years' record of service.
He needn't have worried about the barracking, as the Prime Minister had his own lavish tribute to himself ready.
It's true that I helped to get the biggest Tory majority for 40 years and a huge realignment in UK politics. I've helped to get this country through a pandemic and helped save another country from barbarism. And frankly, that's enough to be going on with. Mission largely accomplished for now. I want to thank everybody here and hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
A hint there that he might be back. It was a departure like no other. Some Tory MPs were slow to stand, some clapped reluctantly. Theresa May sulkily stood up but refused to clap. The party membership must now wrestle with a policy debate triggered by a rupture of trust. Their choice from September, our Prime Minister.
Well, a little earlier, I spoke to the Conservative MP and former Cabinet Minister Liam Fox, who's supporting Rishi Sunak. And I asked him if Mr Sunak has a real fight now on his hands to appeal to the members and what his pitch would be to them.
Basically, he's the best person to win a general election. The reason I think that Rishi will be best placed is that people will remember the furlough. They will remember that had it not been for his rapid action, we may have much higher unemployment than we have today. We might have far fewer viable businesses than we have today. And I think that...
But the members will also remember him for the highest tax burden for 70 years, won't they?
Well, I think that if you want to spend more money, and the country made it clear it wanted more money spent on health and social care. That's what Boris Johnson promised. How are you going to pay for that? Are you going to borrow it from the next generation and simply delay the taxes on them, or do you actually raise the money? Now, what we all want to see is actually a faster growing economy. But that's actually quite difficult given the global situation and inflation. So we've got to be realistic, and one of the reasons that I support Rishi is he is willing to say things that need to be said rather than what people want to hear.
But you know what, he's also doing a few little crowd-pleasing announcements, isn't he? Today, for example, he's making it harder for onshore wind farms to be set up despite backing net zero. Are there going to be more of that kind of red meat for the members to entice them?
Well, he also said today, which I think is incredibly important, that as well as a net zero target, we've got to have an energy independence target. We can't leave ourselves in the position of being dependent on those who may not have our country's interests at heart. As you well know, I've been banging on about this for nigh on 20 years.
But more onshore wind would make it easier to be energy independent, wouldn't it?
Well, we can find other ways. We gave the go-ahead today for Sizewell C for another nuclear reactor, which has to be part of the mix. Our energy security must be based on diversity. That's something that he's been arguing for some time, and I'm glad to see that coming to fruition today.
Now, it's clear from the debates that Liz Truss absolutely loathes Rishi Sunak. Will he return fire?
Well, my advice to any of the candidates is stick to your own case. Set out why you would be the best candidate, because remember, you're going to have to work together the day afterwards.
He was drawn into it, though, wasn't he, in the debates? You think he should refrain from getting personal, basically?
I think that he, in the debates, was on top of the detail. I think he covered more policy areas more expertly, whether that was foreign policy as well as economics or environment. And I think that he has got a great knowledge. He came across as confident.
The fact is, when you talk to colleagues around here, there's absolute civil war within the Conservative Party now. A lot of his colleagues see him as treacherous for the fact that he was plotting his leadership campaign, getting up a website before, while he was serving under the current Prime Minister. Can someone seen as treacherous bring the party together?
I think it's about whether we can actually set out an agenda that's relevant for the country, that chimes with the instincts of our supporters, and a candidate who credibly sell that to the electorate and win a general election. I'm confident that Rishi Sunak can do all of those things.
You all applauded Boris Johnson today, barring Theresa May. Have you forgiven him already?
Well, I think, Boris Johnson's got his great strengths. He's a great campaigner. He won us an 80-seat majority at the election. He helped us get Brexit done, or almost done, depending on what your view of the Northern Ireland Protocol is. And he began the levelling up process. I think his weakness was in his style of government, and I think that's the thing that needs to be redressed most of all.
Just finally, have you been offered a job by Rishi Sunak?
No, and this is always the question, Cathy, that people will say, have you been offered or have you asked for a job? I have neither asked for one nor have I been offered one. And
but of course it would be nice.
My experience in 30 years in the House of Commons and many leadership elections is if somebody offers you a job, they probably offer that job to other people too, so you're probably best to stay away from that. Stick to the merits of your candidates, vote for the one you think is best. For me, that's Rishi Sunak.
Liam Fox, thanks very much. Well, I also spoke to Foreign Office Minister Vicky Ford, who's a Liz Truss supporter, and began by asking her how many unsustainable tax cuts Liz Truss was going to be forced to offer to throw some red meat to the Tory members.
I've worked with Liz for the past 9 months since she became Foreign Secretary. I've been a minister in the Foreign Office with her, and I have seen that she is a person who delivers. She does think that we cannot have more of the same on the economy. We've got the cost of living crisis hitting people right now. The decision that was taken to put in that national insurance rise was pre-Russia-Ukraine, pre the increase that people have seen in food and fuel prices. That's why she says now is not the time to be putting extra taxes on people. That will stifle our growth.
And that might help her with the members because they want tax cuts, but it might not be responsible for the country, and the country doesn't get a say in this election.
I think it is really, really important to keep investment coming into this country and higher paid jobs that come with that investment. We know that when you have a reasonable level of corporation tax, investment comes in. When you push it up, you push that investment away. So she's very, very focused on making sure that the tax policy is affordable through reforms that will deliver that growth and more income.
Now, obviously, you've had a whirlwind campaign to try and win MPs' votes for Liz Truss. You've now got this rather longer, drawn-out affair. Are you worried about how she might withstand some of the more detailed scrutiny she's inevitably going to get over the next few weeks?
No, I think that actually the scrutiny that Liz has had over the past 10 days or so has shown her rising and rising and rising. I mean, Liz has been, in the past 8-9 months since she's been Foreign Secretary, she's been all over the world doing her job and getting on with her job. And that's taken her away from talking to so many colleagues here. But the more that she's spoken to colleagues, the more they've understood her priorities, the more they've come on board. And that's what we've seen day after day after day in the votes here.
Is she a bit odd? Because some of her colleagues say she's a bit odd. Does that matter?
I have not found her at all odd to work with. No, actually, I find her very warm.
But you hear that said of her?
She does focus. And as she said on the TV the other night, you know, she's not the most natural media performer to the cameras. But that doesn't mean that what she's saying is wrong. In fact, actually, what she's saying is honest and correct. We need a Prime Minister who can go in day one into Downing Street and get on with delivering on our priorities.
She was savage to Rishi Sunak in the debate. She's not going to pull her punches now, is she?
No, perhaps they have a different approach on the economy. But they all know they need to work together. Everybody in the Conservative Party will come to work together. What I love about Liz's campaign is we've got people on Liz's campaign from all different corners of the Conservative Party.
You know, she's nicknamed the human hand grenade by our civil servants. She's not going to make peace with the party, is she?
So I've seen civil servants being incredibly loyal to her. Incredibly loyal and very focused, and they know that she's someone who delivers.
You all gave Boris Johnson a standing ovation. A lot of your members think he's still a winner. Is he?
Actually, when I spoke to my members at the event on Saturday, they were very focused on finding the leader that we need to find now.
They're pleased to see the back of him.
They want us to get a new leader in now. They respect where we are.
So you're not going to miss him?
Boris has done many, many great things during this time, but he has now moved on, and so do we.
Well, he hasn't quite moved on, though. He sort of suggested it was unfinished business. I mean, he's going to be some backseat driver, isn't he? How will Liz deal with that?
Liz is a very, very clear-thinking person who sets her own priorities, gets on with the team. She's a team player as well. She will be fine.
But she's not going to take any nonsense from Boris Johnson?
She will not take any nonsense.
Vicky Ford, thanks very much.